There is something almost perfect about going back to X-Men, Mutant, Apocalypse. I don't even know who remembers that game. But the original game understood something that a lot of licensed superhero games sometimes forget completely, where you don't really need to make everything complicated when the characters themselves are already this cool, you know? This thing was released for the Super Nintendo in 1994 by Capcom. Mutant Apocalypse in fact put 5 X-Men in the middle of a mission where mutants were being imprisoned and exploited while Apocalypse was working behind the scenes as well. Cyclops, Wolverine, Psylocke, Beast, Gambit, all of their own abilities, movement styles and attacks. They all gave the game a surprisingly strong sense of variety despite its very small size. I think that's why this is one of those old games that could benefit from a remake without needing to become something completely different. In fact, the original was basically a side-scrolling action game mixed with just platforming with fighting mechanics, and Capcom gave each character moves that actually felt connected to their own powers. Cyclops could fire his optic blasts from a distance, Wolverine could climb walls, Psylocke was fast and agile, Beast could use his strength and movement to reach places others actually couldn't, while then Gambit could charge objects with kinetic energy and throw cards. That simple idea could be amazing with modern technology today. You wouldn't need to turn this thing into a giant open world game. In fact, I think that would miss the point completely. Give us a focused X-Men adventure where every level feels like a real comic book location, every character has a reason to be there, and every mission gives you a chance to just enjoy a different mutant there. And the game setting would just be perfect. A perfect place to start. The original story already gave the remake a strong foundation. Professor Xavier discovers that something is seriously wrong on the island where Cerebro detects the presence of Apocalypse, with mutants being imprisoned and just forced into labor, while the situation between humans and mutants become increasingly dangerous. Then Xavier then sends the X-Men into Genosha to find the source of the problem and free the captured mutants. See, a modern version could make the game setting feel enormous this time without making the game feel like an open world. You could move through ruined streets, industrial facilities, prisons, forests, underground tunnels, heavy military guarded places, and each area showing another side of what happened to the island. One level could begin quietly with Cyclops and Wolverine moving through a destroyed neighborhood while distant alarms echo different buildings. You see Sentinel patrols in the distance, civilians hiding behind broken windows and whatever, groups of captured mutants being transported to the streets. Then one Sentinel spots you, the alarm goes off, and suddenly the whole street becomes a battlefield. That's where the remake should feel different. The original game gave you excellent character variety, but modern hardware could make those powers feel completely alive. Cyclops shouldn't simply shoot a beam because you pressed a button. His optic blasts should tear through objects, knock enemies backwards, bounce off certain surfaces, and just light up an entire room when he fires at full power. Wolverine should feel completely different. He should be faster, more aggressive, much more dangerous at close range. His claws should tear through enemies, cut through certain materials, and just allow him to climb almost anything. Psylocke could become the game's fastest fighter. Her psychic blades could slice through enemies, while her telekinetic abilities allow her to pull objects. And Beast would be the heavyweight, like Streets of Rage games. You shouldn't make him slower than everyone else. He should just be able to grab enemies, throw heavy objects, smash through certain walls, and use his agility in ways that make him surprisingly fun to control. And Gambit could easily become one of the most fun characters in the entire game. His cars could stick to enemies and objects before exploding, whatever, you just imagine that. That would make every character feel like a completely different game. The original already understood this idea. Each of the 5 X-Men had their own opening stage, designed around their abilities, after which the player could use different characters in later missions. A remake could keep that structure while making the stages just much larger and more interesting. And this is where the game could become really special. Instead of choosing a character simply because you just like them, some missions could naturally favor certain abilities, where Wolverine might be the best choice for a heavy guarded facility because he can climb walls and whatever, and Psylocke could just sneak through a dangerous area, and Gambit then could destroy equipment from a distance. You could still complete missions with different characters, but each one would change the way you approach that level. On another hand, the original had this surprisingly strong soundtrack for a Super Nintendo game, with aggressive rock and electronic music that just fit the action perfectly. One long-time playthrough review specifically praised the soundtrack alongside the game's animation and its mix of beat-em-up combat and Street Fighter style sort of moves. A remake should keep that attitude. Don't replace those with generic superhero movie music. Give us guitars, heavy drums, each character a theme. Let Magneto's music sound completely different from Apocalypse's music. Let the final stage feel like the soundtrack is trying to rip through your speakers. That's what the original understood. The game was cool, it didn't need to explain why. A remake should have that same confidence, and there's one thing I would personally avoid: making the game into a giant live service project. Please, just give us a game, a great campaign, a bunch of great characters, a few unlockable customs, maybe some challenge missions, local co-op if it can be done without damaging the design. Online co-op could be fine too, but the single player experience should always come first. See, the original was a single-player Super Nintendo game, and its structure was built around mastering 5 different characters through a focused campaign. That simplicity is part of that charm. A remake doesn't need to apologize for that, it just needs to celebrate that. There's also something really nice about the fact that Mutant Apocalypse isn't one of the X-Men games that gets talked about every 5 minutes. It sits in that very strange group of older licensed games that people who played them remember extremely well, while a whole generation of newer players may have never even heard about it, never touched them. That makes it sort of perfect remake material. You wouldn't be remaking something that everyone has already seen 10 times, you would be taking one of Capcom's most interesting 16-bit X-Men games and giving it the scale it always deserved. And the foundation's in fact is already surprisingly strong right now. 5 playable characters, different powers, movements, the game's setting, Sentiel, Apocalypse, Magneto, Juggernaut, Omega Red, Avalon. Look, basically the blueprint for a futuristic X-Men game. The remake just needs to understand what not to change. Don't lose the simple structure, don't make every character play the same, don't remove the platforming, don't turn every fight into a giant cinematic event, and don't make the game so serious that it forgets how much fun X-Men can be. Because X-Men Mutant Apocalypse was never really about having the biggest roster for the deepest story. It was about taking these characters with completely different powers and just let you run wild with them through a classic Capcom game. A modern remake could take that same idea and make it feel enormous. You rescue mutants, uncover Apocalypse's plan, fight your way through Sentiels, monsters and supervillains, you survive a danger room, head toward the Avalon, and eventually you stand across from Magneto with the entire fate of the island hanging in the balance. That is a version of X-Men Mutant Apocalypse I would love to see. Not a remake that tries to turn the 1994 classic into something unrecognizable. Just Capcom taking that old idea, giving it room to breathe, and letting the X-Men finally go completely wild.